Lions and lionesses. In this episode of the Daily War, we're going to talk all things supplements. And in a short amount of time, I'm going to teach you more than almost everybody knows because there's so many lies and misinformation out there, and it's confusing. Most of the information is driven by supplement companies. So you're getting, it's like pharmaceutical companies. Like they're going in and educating doctors on their products that they are making money from. Same thing with supplement companies. Most of the advertising is driven by people selling the actual products, but their advertising is education based. So they're educating people and they're making it look like it's official, like this is research. It's not research. It's just people selling stuff. And so what we want to do is to understand the underlying principles of nutritional supplements. And let's start with this question. Do you need supplements? Well, not long ago, I did this talk. I did all the research on the United States Department of Agriculture, and every country does this, goes through and says like, okay, let's take the average of the crops of oranges. Let's do that with soybeans. Let's do it with apples. Let's do it with potatoes. And they do it with all these different foods. And they test their nutritional value. Like, hey, are we producing better produce or worse produce? And when I say worse, less nutrients, so it's less healthy for you, right? And so there's just a couple things that happen. And I just went to a farm, an organic farm, like a week ago. So I really learned this firsthand, and I've been to other ones, but this was just recently. And what I learned was amazing. There is an incredible science to farming and producing food, and this goes back into supplements. You'll see very quickly, but most produce loses 30% of its nutrients 3 days after it's harvested or picked. So on the farm. Now, unless you're getting local foods, what's going to happen is it is shipped out, and it's going to sit in a warehouse for a while until it's needed in a store, and then it will restock the shelves. And so they could sit, the example the farmer was telling me was peppers. He says they're sitting around for 14 days in a warehouse before they go anywhere else. And it already took them a week or more to get them to that warehouse. And so they spray stuff on it to make sure, and not all of it's bad. They actually have natural things now that spray to help prevent the breakdown because they lose money. That's profit, right? And so just knowing that is, so 30% after 3 days, imagine what it is, it might be a month later, who knows? So what we want to do is the food, like one of the examples was oranges, and I don't remember the exact numbers. I'll have to find it in my notes, but it was like an orange in like 1942 and an orange in 1994. One orange in 1942 was like equivalent to like 4 oranges in 1992. But that was a consistent pattern in all harvests. So because food in produce they pay based off of weight. So they figured out ways, because they're scientists, the farmers are, to make it hold more water, but not necessarily more nutrients. So if they measured nutrients, got paid off nutrients, then they would do it. So do we need supplements? Well, the other thing I did was I went through and took all the recommended amounts. Like, what do people need of vitamin A, of thiamine, of riboflavin, of magnesium, of zinc, everything. And I try to do it all with just food because I thought it'd be possible. It's not sustainable. It is a lot of food, and you end up eating more calories than your body needs. So you end up gaining weight, even though it's healthy food. It's too much. And I don't think it's physically possible for most people to eat that much food every day. It'd be very uncomfortable. So supplements now are very useful. The problem is they're not regulated in the country. So, and in most countries, they're not actually. And so what happens is you can get some really bad products. Now, if the company's been around for a while, they're probably not bad products, but they may not be the best products. If someone you never heard of and they just popped up, you might want to avoid that company, quite honestly, because there's only a handful of companies. They're called physician formulas, where they sell mainly to healthcare professionals, and these are ones I always used. And the difference between them is they regulate themselves. They have a third-party assays done. So a third-party company comes in and takes samples of their each lot that they produce, and then they test it and see what's actually in that product. And they have to match the claims in the same forms and everything. And so they pay extra money. You pay extra money, and I pay extra money, but it's worth it because you know what you're getting. And if you do drug testing for your job or anything, or for your company, that is a big problem, because I work with a lot of athletes, and you got to be really careful with this stuff. And so you always got to know the companies. The companies, like if I were only going to pick 3 companies that I could get anything from here in the States, it would be number 1. It's a company called Designs for Health. Great company, and they own their manufacturing facilities, which is really important because they control everything top to bottom. Second company would be Thorne, Thorne at the end. So Thorne with an E at the end. And they're really growing quickly. They've been around for quite a long time, but they just keep improving. They're a really good company as well. And then the third company that is really great, it's been around for a long time, produces great products. It's called Biotics Research. And between those 3 companies, you can get anything. And if they don't make it, it probably doesn't work anyway, because they do things based off of research and scientists. They're not very good at marketing. They're getting better, I think. But before, you couldn't even get their supplements unless you were a healthcare practitioner. So people would have to come to like my gym and get them. And now they finally sell it on Amazon and other places, so you can actually get these things. But 5 years ago, you couldn't get them. So it's a whole new world. So you have access to much better supplements, and they're actually cheaper now because they're selling more volume. So how do you build a supplement protocol? Well, supplements, by definition, add to something. And what they add to is your nutrition, your real, actual foods. And is a real food better, like quote, real food, better than a synthetic food? That's a question you have to ask yourself, right? And what's the difference? Well, it's processed. It's not as natural. And the answer to that question is not necessarily. They'll both keep you alive. And so there's not really bad foods if you think about it. Like if you're stuck on an island and all they have is Doritos, you'll live a long ass time as long as you get enough Doritos, but you won't feel great. You won't feel vital. You won't feel strong. You won't be able to have peak performance. And so that's where nutrient density is important. Nutrient density, you want to have foods that are close to their natural source. That's important. So when you're building your diet, that's our first rule. Get foods close to the natural source. So if you have a potato that's roasted, like it's from the ground, you cook it, it has a lot of nutrients. If you have potato chips or like those instant mashed potatoes, there's hardly anything in it. It's just a bunch of calories. And and since there's not a lot of nutrient density, you tend to overeat it because your body's like, hey, there's not enough nutrients here. Keep eating. And so you start craving more food. So there was a study done, I think it was 18 months ago, about 2 years ago. And what they showed is they compared a whole food diet, like eating foods close to your natural source, and comparing it to eating foods that are processed and had the same everything. But the people just tended to overeat because of the processed food. It's really easy to eat a bunch of bread, but it's not really easy to eat like a baked potato, for instance, or a sweet potato. They're much more filling. They have a higher satiety score, it's called. And so whole foods will naturally regulate your metabolism, especially if you're in a calm state. But if you're like watching like an action movie or the news, or you're in a negative emotional state, you'll tend to overeat too. So it's not just these things. There's a scenario of things that are occurring. So with supplements, we want to fill in the gaps. We want to add to the nutrition, but supplements alone will not get the job done, especially in the long term. Supplements add to, and when you get the right supplements, it'll give you an extra 10%, I would say. But the problem is most supplements actually make things worse. Like you get a terrible protein powder. And when I say terrible, it could be one of the most popular ones. It may taste the best. It may be sold at Whole Foods or wherever you go, some great store. But they don't stock things based off of their quality. They stock them based off of what sells. And so what do we want to do here? We want to fill in the gaps. We want you to get a good diet and then fill in the gaps of supplements. But if you're not going to eat a good diet, then you should definitely take supplements because you got to try to minimize damage. So there's basically really only 3 steps to build a core foundation of supplements. Like you want to have a core foundation to fill in the gaps, right? And then you can add performance stacks on top of that. And I'll explain the strategy here. But for every human, you have heard of vitamins and minerals. Now, these are nutrients. So are omega-3 fatty acids. So is protein. So is other fats as well. But nutrients, by definition, are something you must ingest in order to sustain life. So when I first took Nutrition 101, my first year in university, what we did was we went through every vitamin, every mineral, and they explained this to us, and they said, okay, vitamin C, if you don't get enough of it, you get a deficiency. These are the symptoms. This is the disease. And if you don't correct it, eventually you die. And they go through every one of the vitamins and minerals this way. Eventually it leads to death. So it's pretty important, and it doesn't get a lot of play. And it's because there's not really real studies done on taking multivitamins. They do reports where they do surveys and they call them studies, and then they extrapolate all this information. They just ask, it's like if I went through a crowd of people and just asked them questions, then I drew a conclusion based off of that. That's not a really good form of research. It's not conclusive. It just leads to more questions, quite honestly, and confusion. And so, but it's difficult to get those studies done. But there's studies done on individual vitamins and minerals, and there's very good results of those things. But there's also some mixed results for whatever reason, and that could be the quality of the supplements they're using in the research. So let's get to it. Here's the strategy. Step number one, you want to fill in the gaps and make sure you're getting all your vitamins and minerals. So you need a multivitamin, multi-mineral complex. That's the easiest way to do it. A lot of people are taking vitamin B here, vitamin C here, vitamin D there, vitamin E here, and it's they have 600 pills. You don't need that many pills. So if I were to pick the best, we'll say 2 vitamin and minerals, I would say I would go with Athletic Greens, which is a powder. It's a greens powder, but it has all these things in it. It's missing 2 things, but we'll talk about that next. Then there's a one that's really comprehensive, and it comes in packs. There's 2 packs you take a day, and it contains all the vitamins, all the minerals, and also fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids, which I'm going to talk to you about next. And so if you take that, that's all you would actually need as a foundation. So it's that product is called Designs for Health Twice a Day Essential Packs. I probably recommend that to a lot of you, those 2, because those are the 2 best ones in my opinion. Some people don't like to take pills, and that's why I recommend the Athletic Greens, because they're similar. But the benefit is if you take the twice a day essential packs, you don't have to take anything else as the foundation. You have most of it there, unless you have low vitamin D. So let's talk about this next. So once you take a really good multivitamin mineral complex, especially if it's from Designs for Health or Thorne or Biotics Research or it's Athletic Greens, you're doing great. The next step, though, is to get these omega-3 fatty acids. And I did an audio not long ago for you guys about a really interesting study with 30,000 people. And it had to do with people that had 3,000 milligrams or more every day of omega-3 fatty acids and people that had hardly any. And the people that did have more, 3 grams or more a day, 3,000 milligrams or more a day. So say they were eating salmon every day or something like that, or eating a ton of chia seeds that are soaked, or they're just taking their supplements. They're taking fish oils or eating sardines or whatever it may be. But most people are deficient in these. They're not getting enough. And it's a natural anti-inflammatory. It's also really important for your brain and your nervous system, and for your body just to heal. But the people that took more in this study lived on average 7 years longer. So that's a pretty big deal. Really interesting study too. And that was done in the Nordic region as well, where people tend to eat more of those foods and they tend to be healthier as well. So omega-3 fatty acids would be a next thing. If you're taking the twice a day packs, you're getting it. If you want to get it from natural food sources, it's that wild caught salmon. That's the way to go. There's actually some farm raised salmon that are raised on a natural diet. And so those are good for you too. You can, wherever you buy seafood, you can ask about that. But there's farm raised that's not good. They're eating corn and grains. There's no corn in the water, and they're not supposed to eat that. And so they don't store more omega-3s. They store the less healthy fats. Make sense? Sardines. I know most people don't like sardines, but they are really good for you, especially for calcium, for bone health, because it has both vitamin D, it has calcium, and a ton of omega-3s. So something that's really important. The soaked chia seeds, a tablespoon of chia seeds has a ton of omega-3s. I think it's 3. I think that's the daily dose. It's either 1 or 2 tablespoons. Then you soak it overnight, and you can eat it like a chia pudding. We have a recipe that we're making for this, and we'll share it with you coming up over the next couple weeks. We built a whole meal plan system out, where you can see some examples, so you don't have to calculate if you don't want. But just to make it more, it's everything we have in the videos, but it just saves you a little time. It makes it more convenient for you. Okay, so let's go through it again. You're going to start your foundational supplement protocol with a multivitamin and mineral complex. 2, you're going to add an omega-3 fatty acid. You can get it from real food if you want, or I take supplements because it's just easier, and I eat those foods too. And so the best one, the most absorbable one, with other benefits as well, is Designs for Health Xanth Omega. Xanth is with an XANTHOMEGA. I'm going to make a whole system of this, and I've told most of you guys this stuff, but I just want to make sure. And a lot of you take the Udo's 369, and that's fine. The challenge with that is most people get too many omega-6s and omega-9s, and not enough omega-3s. And it's really the ratio of those is what's important. So if you get too many omega-6s and omega-9s, which is found in a lot of different foods, you can have more inflammation in your body. And so you want to get a higher ratio of omega-3s. So if you take a supplement that has 3, 6, and 9s in it, you're not really improving that ratio. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. So what you want to do is take a supplement that you can still take that one, but I don't think it's the best choice. You can also get a flaxseed oil, but I would definitely get a supplement. There's a bunch of different ones. Thorne has a couple good ones. Actually, let me just look at the ones in my refrigerator right now, because I got 2 new good ones that I've been using. They actually taste good, and they're liquid, so you get more bang for your buck. But one is from Designs for Health. It's called Omega Avail, and it's key lime smoothie. And then the other one is from Thorne, and it's called Omega Superb. It's lemon berry flavored. You just need a tablespoon of this a day, and you're good to go on both of them. So very, very good products. I don't want to go down too far down that rabbit hole because I will talk forever. So I'm going to wrap this up here with one last thing though. But if you're getting your omega-3 supplementation in, and you're getting your vitamin and mineral supplementation with one of these companies that have really absorbable, great products, and they're very good. And then the last thing you really want to look at in a supplement is convenient sources of nutrition. Like one of the most important nutrients when it comes to building muscle, speeding metabolism, and just being vital and having longevity is protein. And there's so much misinformation. Like people are comparing plant protein to animal protein, and it's absurd because the human body doesn't break things down. It doesn't look at things like that. It breaks any protein down into amino acids, and it just uses them. It doesn't care where it comes from. It can come from a lab. You can actually make them in a petri dish and then ingest them, and you can make them that way. Or you could get it from an animal, or you can get it from a plant, you can get it from a fish, you can get it from a bird. It is amino acids to the body. There is not a difference. The total amount you get in a day is important. Protein is what you're mostly made of. There's water, which is like 70% of your body, and then the rest of it's mostly protein. You got some minerals in there, then whatever fat someone has. But that's what people are made of. And so when you look in the mirror, you are looking at protein. You are looking at amino acids. So cells die, millions of them every second. Some people say billions. It's just hard to measure those things, so it's hard to say. We'll play it safe and say millions, like 20, 30, 40, 50 million all the time, all day long. And then they have to be rebuilt, and they're being rebuilt with amino acids. So you got to get enough of it. And there is a plethora of research. I may just do a whole audio just on the research on protein and body composition, building muscle, burning fat, and peak performance. Super important, but sometimes it's hard to eat that much food. And some people just don't eat a lot, and so they have to force feed themselves to get results. And so if that's the case with you, let me know, and I'll tell you how to increase your appetite. And it's really simple to do. But the other part is just a protein powder. A protein powder is really simple, or a nutrition bar. But the protein powders, if you get any protein powder from Thorne, there's one called Meta something. That's right here. The ones from Designs for Health are great. The best one for muscle building and that's used to boost immune function is called Way Cool. It's a terrible name, but the chocolate one tastes incredible, and it is a really great product. The Thorne one is called Metaclear SGS, and that's a plant-based protein powder if that matters to you. There's actually a new one that I got some samples to. It tastes good, and it's a peanut butter. It's called Four Sigmatic, and they make that coffee, that organic coffee with mushrooms in it. And so it has a bunch of stuff in it. It's worth a shot. It's good to switch up your protein powders and not do the same ones all the time. So you want to find like 3 or so that you can alternate between so your body doesn't get used to it, because you can develop sensitivities if you eat the same thing all the time. So well, we're making a list of those things too, but it's any product from Thorne that makes a protein powder or Designs for Health, and those ones actually taste good to me anyway. So you let me know what you take, and if there's any questions I can answer for you, let me know, and I would love to help you out. But this is a little thing that makes a big difference way down the line. Like decades from now, you're going to be glad you did this, because it's a little thing. Because really, how do we age? How do we lose our health? How do we lose our strength? A little bit every day. So you have to win the day. The body takes score on a daily basis. And it's like, hey, do I get weaker today, or do I get stronger? Do I lose muscle? Do I gain fat? What's going on? Like how much food did you eat today? What did you demand of the body? Did you push it? So that means it needs to get stronger. Or did you just kind of sit around? That means it's going to get weaker. It's really just that simple. It's like you treat each day like a game. And so you got to win the day. All right, my friends, you are a lion, not a lamb. I appreciate you. If you listen this far, I really appreciate you. And you are a lion. And I know who listens, who doesn't, by the way. We track these things. All right. Love you guys. Happy holidays.
You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live, not the fear of a lamb.